Today I'm going to show you how I decorated this Garfield cake. Come join me. So this cake is a 2-layer cotton candy cake and it is decorated with fondant. So prior to the day I actually decorated the cake, I had to create many different elements of fondant. So here I am making the pieces that create the face of our Garfield. So I'm making kind of his mouth right now out of some yellow fondant. After I finish making this, I'm going to make his eyes, which is made up of some white pieces, some black pupils. There are some orange eyelids, and some other elements, which you'll see here momentarily. But as I mentioned, this is his mouth, which I'm pulling out right now. The next piece I'm going to be making are his eyes. So I had created this is a piece of parchment paper that I traced on with some edible marker. And then I put that over top of my rolled out fondant and then cut it using my X-Acto knife. So that's how I'm getting these shapes that I need. So you can see I just added one of the eyes. Here I am getting the pupil cut out, which I'll add to the white of the eye. Here I am cutting out the eyelids for his eyes that will go over top of the white of his eye. There I am smoothing edges just to make them look nice and neat. Here I'm beginning to assemble the eyes together. I'm using a paintbrush and wetting along the edges of each of these pieces and just sticking them together so that they stick together and adhere so that I can put them on top of the cake once they're dry. Here I am molding the ears out of some pieces of orange fondant. I do have to go back and forth here to make sure that I have the right size. I'm cutting them down now to get the right size. And I'm going to just stand them up so I can see what they'll look like on the cake. I had cut a piece of a paper plate so I could see exactly what size I'm going to need. Here I am using an edible marker, drawing some black stripes on for the design of our cat on his ears. Here I am making his nose, and that's out of a piece of pink fondant. Now I'm beginning to make some meatballs that will go along the cake board on the cake, and I'm using some brown fondant. Here I'm using some gray fondant to make a fork that I will then later paint with some silver luster dust. And here I'm cutting the tongs of the fork. So I'm cutting the individual slats and then I'll cut out every other one of these to leave the space for a fork. Now I did make that a little bit too wide, so then I cut this down some so it is smaller. Here I am making my sauce. I'm using some buttercream, I'm using some jelly, and I'm using some piping gel. I'm mixing that all together so that I have the consistency of sauce. So there's my cake. It is blue and pink, and I'm beginning to cover my cake. I put some buttercream onto the cake board to hold it still while I decorate, and I'm covering the cake for my initial crumb coat. Trying to get it as smooth as I can in this first pass on with the icing. Doesn't have to be perfect, but again, just trying to get it smooth as possible on the first go. Have the first layer done, and I'm going to add my second cake here and cover that one as well. And I'm going to grab my bench scraper here and I'm going to smooth those sides up. And I'm also going to square up those edges on the top so that they're as smooth as possible. Have nice crisp edges. Have the train in the background. Now that I have the crumb coat done, I'm going back and I'm beginning to add the orange to the cake to get our color of our Garfield. So this is our final coat of icing on the top of the cake. And now we want this layer to be nice and smooth, and as this is our blank canvas for decorating. Again, using that bench scraper, get those sides nice and smooth, and we're going to clean off that top to give us those nice crisp edges. And then once I have that all nice and clean and ready to go, we'll begin adding the elements that I created. Here I am adding the eyes and the face, as I mentioned. And I have some toothpicks in those ears, so I'm going to push those into the cake to secure them. Here I am making some black fondant stripes. These are going to be used as the design for the stripes of the cat, using an extruder. I'm adding some letters for the birthday boy's name. I'm using some of the orange buttercream to stick these onto the cake so that you can't see what is actually sticking them on, to keep the cake looking nice and neat. Just cleaning up around the edges of each one of the letters a little bit, again, to keep it nice and neat looking. And now I'm beginning to add those stripes. It's 3 different sizes at each section, so I'm going to do this across the whole cake, speed this up so we can get through this quite quickly. Then once I have that done, I'm going back, I'm using that extruder again, and now I'm making some noodles. These are the spaghetti that are going to go onto the cake. I'm putting some of these onto the cake board. I'm going to wrap some of these around his ears. I'm going to wrap some around that fork that I made. And then you'll see me adding those meatballs and the sauce that I had made a little bit ago. And that will essentially finish up the look of this cake. I also did take a paintbrush and brushed a little bit of sauce on his mouth, just to make it look like he really enjoyed his spaghetti and meatballs. So just kind of getting these spaghetti all over the cake board and our Garfield. Just placing it sporadically. Some of them I'm wrapping into a twirl. Some of them I'm just kind of piling up. Here's the sauce getting placed. And the meatballs getting placed. And with that, this does complete the look of the cake. This is what it looked like. If you enjoyed this video, I do encourage you to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any future content. I do thank you for joining me. I appreciate you coming to visit my channel. Please, please, please come again. And once again, thank you so much. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please come again.